a warm welcome to everyone here today. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not going to. Okay, awesome. So again, a warm welcome. Thank you to our panelists and our STEM faculty for joining us today as well. It is appreciated, and we are excited to get going. We're going to do a couple of housekeeping things first. So I wanted to let you know that at SNHU, your experience is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of presentations, design, or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the appropriate accessibility center. If you're an online student, you can email oac@snhu.edu or call at 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, you can email cac@snhu.edu or call 603-644-3118. And if you're an SNHU staff or faculty, you can email hr@snhu.edu. I also wanted to then welcome my co-host for the day. So Alyssa, if you want to please lead us through some information here, that'd be appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daisy, and welcome everyone. We are absolutely thrilled that all of you can be here this morning, this afternoon, or evening, as Daisy said, whatever time zone you are currently in. We are very excited to kick off Hour of Code, which, as you can see here on the screen, is our week-long engagement that is hosted by SNHU's Career Services team and members of our SNHU STEM department. So we see that there's been some flurry of activity in the chat. Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves. Keep that going. Feel free to say hello, maybe where you're joining us from, your major. And if you feel comfortable, we'd love to kind of engage where everyone is in terms of your coding comfortability. So feel free to respond in the chat to the question, how comfortable are you with coding on a scale of 1 to 3? Again, we'll preference that Hour of Code, and all of the upcoming sessions this week are open to all, regardless of your proficiency in coding. This is just a really fun time to engage with fellow SNHU peers in a really unique way. So with that, Daisy, we can go to the next slide, please. Fantastic. So just wanted to highlight some FAQs, just to kind of what to look forward to for the rest of the Hour of Code week-long celebration. So just some background. So Hour of Code is a week-long global event. So it's not just specific to SNHU, but originally started as a 1-hour introduction to computer science, really to demystify code and what that means, and to show that anybody can learn the basics. And really, it was mostly the ultimate goal was to broaden participation in the field of computer science. If anyone is interested in finding out more about Hour of Code and kind of its history, feel free to check out the website. We'll be sure to add that into the chat box shortly. But this week, so students have some really, again, fun things to look forward to. So students will be led by STEM faculty and staff through available coding games and activities that will happen for 1 hour each day of this week. So starting today and then through this coming Friday, the 8th. So today, of course, we're all here for our kickoff event, which is our employer panel. And then today we'll be hosting our first session, which is session 1. We'll be actually having an open discussion about AI, and in addition to a fun game and coding session. So just wanted to highlight kind of what's to come for today and the rest of this week. And last but not least, the students who will be participating in any of the coding gaming sessions this week, there's an opportunity to be awarded a certificate of completion upon completing some of these specific games. Daisy, next, please. Wonderful. So again, just here on the screen, you can see just what our week-long session schedule looks like. Again, when all of you originally registered for this event through SNHU, you were able to sign up for multiple sessions that worked best with your schedule, but just wanted to highlight what's to come for the rest of this week. So again, we have our session happening at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So again, just make sure you're keeping that time zone in mind. We have two sessions happening on Tuesday. One at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that is also a unique hybrid session. So if you are located near the New Hampshire area or located near SNHU's campus, you're welcome to go and attend this event in person. So take a look at that. Again, once you register online, you'll be able to find more details on that session. Again, we'll have another two on the 6th, 10:30 and 3 p.m., Thursday, 11 a.m. and 6 p.m., and finally Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So again, Be sure to check out the sessions that are available through that registration platform, which again is located through My SNHU under the events page. So Daisy, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go ahead and focus on the panel portion. So I would love to invite George. George is with AT&T. And if George, if you'd like to come off mute and say a bit about yourself, that would be much appreciated. Oh, I'm sorry, you're still muted. No, you might have like the double mute going. Let's see, George is typing, so we'll give him a second here. Okay, you shouldn't be. Let me. George, you're a presenter, so you should be able to unmute yourself. I'm not entirely sure why the meeting says that you're muted. It also looks like he stepped out for a second. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'll move on to the next panelist. We can come back around to George whenever we've got that figured out. So Baiyang, if you would please come off mute and introduce yourself.
So hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Hello everyone, glad to be here. I'm Baiyang Xu, so I graduated from SNHU at 2019, and I'm currently working as a software developer for a finance company called BGC Partners at New York City. And previously, I'm a full stack developer and working for different companies like LG, Samsung, and PayPal. And yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. We're happy to have you here too. Arron is our next panelist. I want to check, is the slide on Arron at this point? I'm seeing yeses and nos, so I'm going to go ahead. So Arron, if you don't mind introducing yourself, please.
Yeah, sure thing. So had kind of an unconventional journey. I started at a local university for computer science, then moved to SNHU after a bit for game development and programming, and actually got a job with a local healthcare company and kind of been in healthcare and telecommunication ever since while I was still in SNHU. So I've been working as a software engineer for about 4 years now. And just been going good ever since. Took a small break in cybersecurity and had convention where we had a booth set up next to like laser guided missiles and stuff, and we're just selling software. So it's been interesting, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being here.
Sure thing.
And Brian, if you also wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, my background's a little bit different. I've been doing scientific programming for about the past 30 years or so. I worked in industry for a while at ExxonMobil, and then for the past 17 years, I've been at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is a government agency in Gaithersburg, Maryland. So I have a little bit of a different perspective on what type of things you can do with programming.
Perfect. Thank you. And we do have another panelist. Cenker is also an SNHU alumni. I don't believe he's been able to make it yet, so if he does hop on, we'll let him introduce himself at that point in time as well. But in the meantime, Alyssa, I will go ahead and, oh, he's here, perfect. Give me 1 second, Cenker, and I will make you a presenter. Perfect. You should now be able to turn your camera on, and then if you wanted to go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear or see me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Like Daisy said, my name is Cenker. So I'm currently working as a senior WebQ engineer at PTC, and I'm a SNHU alumni as well. From 2016, I completed master's in IT back then. And then I started my journey as a web developer for a small electronics recycling company in Goffstown, New Hampshire, that opened up a lot of different opportunities for me, including application development. I had a chance to build like CRM software for their salespeople to use. And also from there, I continued my journey as a web developer. From there, I had a chance to work in tech support for a very complex data backup company, which was acquired by Google. And while I was there, I got introduced to QA, quality assurance. And from there, that opened a lot of different ways for me to build automated testing frameworks for autonomous mobile robots for warehouses, e-commerce warehouses. And from there, now I'm managing the web QA team at PTC.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And before I kick it back to Alyssa, George, I see you again. I want to make sure, is it working now, or I can work some tech support in the back here in a second? No, gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and Alyssa.
How about now?
Yes, perfect.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I hung up from my phone and just did it through the computer, so I'll have to connect that back. But thank you for allowing me to be here. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll get that straightened out. But my name is George Smallwood. I've been with AT&T for about 20 years now. I can't believe it. I am in employee relations, and I support all the technology and network side of the house for AT&T. Just my experience is usually kind of around the recruiting, talent development, and things like that. So excited to be here and just talk through that piece of it. Thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here, and apologies again for the tech issues. So with that, Alyssa, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the PowerPoint. If you wanted to go ahead and introduce our moderator for the day, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, just a quick thank you to all of our panelists who are here this afternoon. We're just so appreciative of your time and excited for some of the wisdom you'll be sharing with us and our students today. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Cheryl Frederick. She is the Executive Director of our STEM programs here at SNHU and will be moderating our panel this evening. So without further ado, Cheryl, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alyssa. And thank you, panel, for coming and joining us in this discussion. So the format will be I'll ask questions, and I'd like to hear from everybody on the questions, but you just step in when the moment takes you, so no particular order. So what's great is we have a mix of what you actually do in the industry and from a variety of industries. One of the questions that students ask quite a bit is, what programming languages should they know to get started in the field as a software developer?
Well, I'll take a stab at this. I'd say it really depends on what you want to focus on as a developer and what you enjoy. Because there are a lot of different paths you can take, and I'm sure all the panelists are probably going to be nodding in agreement here. If you want to go web development, definitely take a look at HTML, JavaScript, CSS, like those can be your root foundations. If you want to go into more of like the back-end system sort of things for still in web, you're going to be looking at Java, you're going to be looking at C, C++, depending on what systems you're building on, maybe Ruby. Like there's a wide variety just in web. And then you go to the other side of things, if you go into desktop applications, your root foundation is really going to be just learning core concepts in C++, C#, something like that, even Python, just learning your core concepts, and it'll carry across every language you write in. It doesn't really matter. Once you learn one, I mean, many people agree, you learn one, you kind of learn them all, to more or less.
I can also try to answer this one. I had a chance to work on different programming languages, and I agree with Arron. So I started with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, which gave me, like literally what he said, gave me the foundations. And then from there, it was very easy to get into different roles. I also did a lot of TypeScript. Now I'm mainly doing Python and also C# to help with our web development team. So once you learn one of them and you understand the concepts, you understand how the basic application infrastructure work, that kind of stuff, you can always carry over your existing knowledge into different projects, different roles with different needs and all that stuff. Foundations is the most critical thing, in my opinion. Yep.
And I think I might be able to jump in there. I don't have a coding background, but I think that the basic foundational nature, what I've seen just at my company, for instance, is having that base foundational knowledge. We've taken people through and trained them on the additional thing or the new thing that's come out. But being able to just have that foundational base knowledge allows you to get in the door. And as things evolve, you'll be able to change with the times, because I would say that, technology, changes very frequently, and we kind of have a skills development program to where if the new thing comes out, we'll put you through that. And as long as you know how to do the cool, hip stuff of the time, you'll be able to have that flexibility to move over it. So I think it's foundation and then flexibility for the future as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with previous three awesome answers. I think for now, because I'm pretty new here, I'm kind of just 5 years of experience in the industry. For now, just pick a language that you like. Start from there. And because all the basic stuff is the same, all the logic or how you create the clean code, create your architecture, it's all the same. The difference is the tool you are using. So start with something you like, that you have the passion for it, and then build your basic logic and basic coding style, and then you can start to pick up something else, some other language that the company requires you to do. Yeah.
I'm maybe be a little bit more specific. I think if you have no idea what you wanted to look at, start with Python. Python, if you have the basics in Python, you can go anywhere, and that'll be a good base, and then that'll take you to any place else that you want to go. But like I said, if you know the foundations, you can go jump into any of these others with either training yourself or getting training within any company that you go to.
All really good tips. And I like the tip too, start with Python, because sometimes students are like, where do I start? So given that, what are your favorite resources to learn a new language? Or where would you recommend people that are new to this to go and get started with this, besides coming to SNHU? Like, what are some other resources that they could use to get started with learning how to code?
Okay, I'll start this time. I cheat a lot, and whenever I'm working on a new project and I have an idea, I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a certain language. It ends up being a combination of Google and GitHub to see how other people have done it. So it just needs a lot of practice, and you can see how other people have approached a problem, and that's how you build up this experience, or one way to build up an experience working with languages and working to see how it can be done and how you can start to incorporate those ideas into your day-to-day coding.
That's a nice one. Short by video always works best. I was add on top of that. One thing that we use is nanodegrees. If you've heard about that. So, you come in with your 4-year degree, your master's degree, but like I said, technology changes so frequently. So those nanodegrees that you can go get skilled up in something in 3 months or 6 months, we promote those profusely at our company. And even our technology people who have been doing this for 10 years, they go and get a nano degree in this or that, and then they're running and hitting the pavement hard. So I would say nano degrees is my favorite, and the one that we use quite frequently here at AT&T.
I can go next. Whenever my friend or another like people that I know ask me like about how to get into this like IT in general, I always tell them to start with the basics. That goes to my previous answer, but Linux is, I think, having a grasp of like how to communicate in the terminal with the operating system that you're using is really helpful, because you're gonna see a lot of things that you need to install on your dev environment, like a lot of different dependencies that you need to install to complete a project, so on and so forth. I think like having understanding of Linux is important, and to get there, I always recommend finding out videos on YouTube first. Those are free, and there are a lot of them, obviously. And you can see before you invest your time in. You can definitely look at the comment section of those YouTube videos, and you're going to see a lot of different comments. And if a lot of people are finding those resources useful, then definitely go through those resources and consume as many things as you can. And from there, I would suggest maybe go to like another paid options, which happens to be more structured, and then you can actually like get some certification in or anything like that. You can go to places like Udemy. That's what I did. There are a lot of like discounts going on, like certain periods of times of the year, like during Black Friday, Christmas, and all that good stuff. So I would definitely start with like YouTube, and from there you can definitely go to after you have the basic understanding of things, you can go to Google if you have any specific questions, and also find answers in GitHub, try to implement it by yourself. And then from there, once you feel like, hey, I have the basic grasp of this, then you can invest into like paid options, which would get you to the place that you would like to be in your professional career.
Yep, I totally agree. YouTuber is a really good source if you want to learn something new. There are a lot of YouTubers there post related stuff. I even learned React from YouTuber, like for my basic React stuff. And also, beside that, for developers, software developers, there is a website called Stack Overflow. There have a lot of technical issues there, questions there. If you have any questions, you can go there and ask there. And also, I also see previously a lot of people say they are not really comfortable with coding. So one thing I can suggest is go to a website called LeetCode. From there, you can have a lot of coding questions, coding challenges. Join the weekly challenges. It will post a new difficult coding questions. Just go there, start from basic, and do all the challenges. You will find yourself more and more comfortable with codings. Yeah.
I'd say too, one very important resource that we kind of skimmed over is just the documentation for whatever you're trying to learn in the first place. If you're starting from like bare bones basics beginning of whatever it is, especially for someone like said like React or Unreal Engine or C#, Microsoft has great tutorials, demo projects, things like that, where they give you 90% of the code and you just gotta finish that last 10%, and it helps you learn really key components of how to manipulate variables or how to go through certain types of loops, things like that, like very core components to those languages. They're going to be in the documentation. You just got to take the time to read sometimes, and that could be the worst part.
Those are really good ideas. And I like the idea to actually go through the documentation. That's a very savvy idea. So a lot of the ideas are around, going to this site, learning from a YouTuber, looking at documentation. Once you get some of the foundations under your belt, or let's say you have them already and you're pretty good at coding this anyway, what do you recommend if they need to build a portfolio? I'm assuming you would say, have a portfolio of projects and something that highlights your skills as a developer. What would you recommend for our people here to get started on putting together a professional, portfolio of projects that they've done, and what would you look for if you were trying to assess their skill level in coding?
So if you're not in the industry yet, a big thing is going to be open source contributions. So this is on GitHub or Bitbucket, any other shared code base type websites where you can have all of your code public. You're not making the next big, AI algorithm that's going to need patented 23 times. You don't need to worry about it being public. Put all your stuff up public, make it public, share it so people can see that you're working. They can see that you're putting effort into learning things. And that way you can also look back at your old projects and see your growth, because that's huge too. Looking back at your old projects should be kind of uncomfortable because you see how bad you were. At least I know it is for me. I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? Why did I do it this way? And then you can improve and iterate on your own projects. And once you put that time in, you'll have a collection of either repos that you've made or contributed to that all show up in a list on GitHub. So a lot of software employers, that's what they'll do. They'll ask for your GitHub account. They'll go in and they'll just see what you've contributed to. And that can get you a foot in the door, either at one of the open source companies you contribute to, or be very, very good material for an interview to talk about projects that you've worked on.
To add, oh, go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step over you. When I was in industry, one of the things that we always looked for, especially for undergraduates, is if you came in, you worked for a summer for an internship, we paid well, and that was usually a step in the door to get a job eventually. Because when you're in industry and you spend a summer there, we can see what type of coder you actually are, and so it gives an idea of what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and we have a pretty good idea at the end of the term if you were going to be offered a job there. So if you have the ability, internships are always a really nice way to get your foot in the door in a company.
Yeah, we actually just hired on an intern to our team 2 weeks ago. It's a great way to get foot in the door in a company and just kind of show your worth. And even if they don't have room on that team, they'll usually find a spot if they really like you.
Another thing that I would like to add is finding volunteer projects, like a lot of places out there in your local community in need of a lot of small web-related projects, and also you name it, basically. The needs could be like from like a ground up project, or maybe they had another contractor working on something and their contract ended, and then they're looking for someone else to get them to the finish line, right? So I think finding those opportunities in your local opportunity would also look great in your resume. It shows that you're willing to learn new stuff, and you're also up for a challenge. And yeah, I think that's also really important. The other thing is, like, I mean, for example, when you're looking for a new graduate's resume, seeing these kind of things would really look great and would definitely make you look different than other new graduates who are applying for the same role.
Also, if you are interested in like front end, you can also build yourself a website. It's pretty cheap now, like $2 per month. You can host your website there and build all the stuff you learned from any sources, and you can link the website with your LinkedIn profile or something, and some employer will also go there to see how you do it. And then, as Arron said, you can post your original code on the Git. And so they can also see how you code, how your coding styles. And also it's a good way, to do the interns. We just transfer our intern to full-time this year. Yeah. It's a best way.
George, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, I won't repeat, but the internship programs, some companies have apprenticeships, really great way. So I won't repeat it, but I think Brian, you stated that one. So I would say that that's one of the main ones that I would go for.
So, and I think Georgie mentioned this as well. So I did hear in some of the responses a mention of things are things change. Like we have innovations that are coming. AI seems to be in a household conversation lately. What do you see? Where do you see this industry heading in, say, the next 3 to 5 years? And what do our attendees need to do to be prepared for that new industry?
Yeah, well, I'll jump in and just say, you mentioned AI, like Gen AI is crazy. Like I probably heard that word 1,000 times in like the last week. And what's interesting is that, it's not just in relation to, all the super cool techie stuff that's going on, but just everyday jobs like HR, what I do, Gen AI, things that you wouldn't even think about would have that element. So I would say, whatever programming skills that you can build that will be able to help facilitate that, because people are clamoring for it. And I think you have a good roadmap to success because people want it, but they don't know what it is and they don't know how to implement it. They don't have any idea. And just being in on the ground level to kind of give some perspective around it and be able to kind of show some skill in that area and kind of just learning the business part of it to be able to apply what could my programming skills bring to that side of the business. Like I said, HR, I'm working with some coders right now in my company. I don't know anything about Gen AI except what I hear at the conferences, right? But they're taking my ideas and my concepts and kind of putting it into layman's terms and then saying, okay, we could potentially try this or we could try that and, kind of trial and error. So I think being able to speak kind of both languages, the everyday language of the people, translate that into the actual technical side of it, and then, give that to whoever, if that's not you or the next person, I think that's going to be a good skill as well.
And I think when you're talking about AI, especially the deep learning things that are going on right now, for most people, that it requires a lot more. You have to be comfortable with some type of data formatting, data analysis in order to do the training these type of networks. And so that's something that I think is going to become more and more important to be able to have these skills in which you can take large data sets, you can format it in so that they can train these large neural networks. And I think that's something we're going to see more and more as a job skill that employers are going to start looking for.
Yeah, AI is definitely the future of the coding. One example is I'm working for a finance company, which everything moves very slow because regulations, laws and stuff. Even our company is starting to ask our opinions of how we can bring AI in our product. So it's definitely a future and it's worth to start to studying it, to understand it. For example, like we just discussed, you can create your own project, plug in with the OpenAI API to see how it works, how it's going to help you. Yeah. And also, for example, ChatGPT, learn how to use it, how to ask the right questions to allow it to give you the answer you want. Things like that. It's also help.
Go ahead, Arron.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. I will say, a lot of it, like, all the foundations are still the same. It doesn't really matter what's changing, what new technology is coming out. There's in web development, I mean, there's a new toy every 20 minutes. Like there's a new shiny thing in every corner to bring your attention to it. And sometimes they're really cool, and sometimes they add some extra functionality that's handy, and sometimes they're just kind of a waste of time to learn. But in the end, you're going to be doing the same thing, maybe just with different end goals. So a lot of people ask, like with AI coming out and all of the extra features it can do and abilities it has, are any jobs at risk or anything like that? No, not really. It's mostly just extra tooling. So it's not going to take your job, but definitely learn how to use these tools to do your job faster, more effective, less error prone, things like that. That's really the big key thing to take away from all of those conversations.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to that a little bit, Aaron, because I totally agree with everyone who talked about this, but you can also use AI to get your foundations all set, because even if you have to use AI, generative AI, to get you something, like if let's say you're working on a project and maybe you're using GitHub's Copilot or anything like that, you still have to use your foundations to get AI to answer the questions that you need to be answered. So that's where it comes in. You can also use AI to learn the basics. You can, for example, you're watching a YouTube video to learn a new technology, and there is a specific section that you need more clarification with. And you can, instead of like going to the person that you're watching the video of, directly asking them questions, you can just like describe what you're trying to do and describe what your question is properly, and try to get in touch with AI and try to read their responses, and then try to ask follow-up questions, and to make sure that you get your answers properly, because there are a lot of situations where if you try to get AI to answer your questions, if you think that that's going to happen with one question, like for really complex projects that you're working on, that's not going to happen. But you need to feed AI with a really structured way of asking questions, and then you need to be able to interact with it. So you can definitely use AI to get better at your job, set your foundation straight and all that good stuff. Don't scare, but try to embrace it, I should say.
And I think that it's sometimes an uphill battle, right, to address potential concerns or fear around, getting replaced in the workforce, especially with AI. That tends to be what I hear a lot of concerns around. Ethics and being responsible as a practitioner with coding, being aware of equity, diversity, inclusion as part of your role and those products that you are working on. What do you see as some of the near-term challenges and the near-term skills that practitioners need to have so that they are ethical and that they're using AI in a very responsible way?
I'll jump in and just say one thing that we talk about. I know we talk about kind of like the open, I'll just say open internet, right? So we talk initially with our employees right now about not just, taking code that's out in the general domain and bringing it into our company, because there might be risk associated with that code. There might be, proprietary information or copyright infringement. So we try to teach ethics from just the, protect yourself, protect the company type standard, and then also like a trust and verify component as well. So just because it's out there doesn't mean it's all great. There's there's falsehoods, there's hallucinations, all those different types of things. So just really teaching them the foundational ethics, like aside from AI. If you have ethics aside from AI, you'll have ethics with AI. So don't plagiarize, don't copy and steal, cite your work, trust but verify. And then I would say to the other point about, just the jobs and things like that, I just wanted to touch on. I think that, there's no real fear from that aspect of it. We say it'll make you more efficient. It'll make companies more efficient so that they can invest in the right people doing the right jobs, and the repetitive or some of the other tasks that really don't need to be done, that can be handed off to, some other form, Gen AI, whatever that looks like, automation, so that the valuable people can focus on the more valuable work. So that's the little piece I wanted to add on to that. So that's my 2 cents.
I think I'll follow on what George was talking about. I think especially with AI, a lot of AI is based on training on data sets, and there are some huge ethical pitfalls with these data sets. George talked about one of them, which was the potential of using copyrighted material, using somebody else's intellectual work and incorporating your own. There's also huge problems with the quality of the data set. Does it have implicit biases that when you train on that data set, are you introducing biases into whatever the resulting program is? And these things can be not just problematic, they can actually be dangerous, and depending on what your program's doing. So these are huge problems, and this is well beyond what this forum is going to address. But right now, AI in some ways is a very much developing area, and that includes the ethics too. And so people are still trying to get a handle on it. And so it's going to be a little bit before we have a really good idea of what are some of the necessities in order to especially handling the data and for these training sets.
Yeah, also to add on that, for example, if you're using AI tools and you find something that is inappropriate, that is wrong, just report it and let the source company know that something is wrong with this AI. For example, for ChatGPT, sometimes when the answer is not right, you can always evaluate the answers. You can also always give feedback. Let that people behind the AI who code the AI know that there is something wrong. Yeah.
And I forgot the name of the role, but we're rolling out in the process of rolling out a ton of AI just across our company. And I think, Brian, you'll probably jump in and say the right answer, but we have nothing except people whose sole purpose and job it is just to look at the answers and make sure that the information and the data is right. I forgot the title just that quickly, but that's their whole mission in life, is to make sure that if it gives out A, B, and C, A and B are verified, C is completely needs to be cut off, So that's an important task or skill to kind of just checking the information. That's how important it is.
Yeah, I think it's all of our responsibility to train a good AI for our future, for even our future, for our kids. It's because now it's the generation we are creating it. So it is really important we put energy on it to make it proper. Yes.
So go ahead, Cenker.
Yeah. So like everyone has been talking about, it's very new. So nobody really know like where we're gonna go with this yet. So that opens a lot of areas of like questions and all that stuff, including ethics, right? So outside of that, when I was working for an e-commerce company, which happened I worked them until like this year's summer, last summer. They had an agreement with OpenAI, which was the company behind ChatGPT, right? So they had an agreement with the OpenAI. Instead of using the public version of ChatGPT. They had an agreement with OpenAI, so we would get our own instance of ChatGPT. So instead of using the public version, which would have, they strictly were against copying and pasting proper copyrighted information, and they encouraged us to use the other version, which was like the private version. And they thought about like, hey, like we would cover all the grounds that like currently are being considered as problems in ethics and all that stuff. And they try to cover those grounds with OpenAI and try to move us over to the private version of OpenAI, ChatGPT. So that's also something that is gonna, I oversee that would happen with a lot of different companies. So currently it's in its early stages, but companies are gonna embrace this because that's the buzzword going on at the moment. But there are definitely gonna be changes. So again, just make sure that if you're like working for a company that has a how to say that, instructions about how to use AI, just follow those instructions. And if you have any questions, just go to the person who actually wrote that, because that's what we have at PTC. For example, there's a source about how to use AI. They're clearly saying that, hey, don't use this, don't do this, don't do that. Other than that, you're good. So these things are gonna evolve over time. We're gonna do a lot of like trial and like failures and all that stuff. But try to find these things over search the internet. So try to find like the basics of the ethics, the questions that people usually have around AI so far, and just make the best out of it, I would say.
And you bring up a good point. You know, we recently at AT&T written an AI policy to kind of help employees roll AI out and use AI, because everyone's clamoring for it. And one of the big points for us, and I talked a little bit about it earlier, but is we have a private, on our own network only version of AI that we use. We don't put anything out in the public one, because whatever we put out there is now, you know, kind of public knowledge. So you can kind of pass, you know, proprietary information back and forth unintentionally. So, you know, for practice purposes, we have our own version, put everything through here, because once it goes there, it's out. So that's one of the big components. So thanks for mentioning that. That's important. Follow that company's guidance around that.
Yeah, to add on that, also don't copy paste your code to any OpenAI sources. It will use in their database. Maybe in the future, people will find out your code. So it's very dangerous for your company.
So I'm doing a time check here. So I know we have several questions in the chat from students. I want to make sure we get to those. So Alyssa, do you want to ask those questions for the panel to respond to? And sorry, Arron, didn't mean to move on. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you all panelists for all of your wonderful responses and all the activity that's been happening in the chat as well. Thank you all so much for providing your insight there. So we only have a few questions from the students that we'll be able to collect in the chat. So wanted to dive into those before our time is up. So these questions are a little bit more career related. So the first question is, what tips or suggestions would you give to experienced software engineers who are looking for remote opportunities, and where should these students start exploring options?
I'll jump in and say that. So we have at AT&T, we have a technology development program, and we're on campuses across the U.S. recruiting some of the best talent out there. So I would say, I know other companies do the same thing. Interact and engage with some of the companies on campus. that specifically have technology programs or just other programs in general. Getting your foot in the door is a good way. But if it's specific to technology, you probably got a leg in the door with your degree. So if you see AT&T out, or reach out to an AT&T recruiter, reach out to me. I'm pretty sure we can get you in contact with one of our teams that's looking for that. And I will say that we do usually convert interns over when they do a good job, and we hire a lot of them every year. So that's one place that I would say just get in contact with your on-campus recruiting. Any companies that are out there, go and introduce yourself.
Also, you can try LinkedIn. Go to the company you want to work for, search people there, try to create connection with them. Even they don't agree, maybe there will somebody that agree your connection request, and be polite. Ask them a favor, ask them whether there is an opening. Sometimes it does work as well.
I'll go. Also, you can, and I'm coming from the U.S. government, but you can go to usajobs.gov and just search for remote work, and there's probably dozens and dozens of jobs for all different type of disciplines that you can find there across that the government's currently hiring for remote work at the moment.
I have a,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Daisy.
Alyssa.
No, you're good.
I have a student submitted question that I think is in a somewhat similar vein. So I'll open it up to anyone, although also, Brian, I'm curious to hear your perspective as well. So the student asks, what is a great way to get and make connections in this industry? They mentioned that they have experience, but they've struggled to make connections. I don't know, Brian, if you wanted to start, and then anyone else would be welcome to chime in, or if you want to pass, that's fine too.
Again, you just have to make connections. You have to go out there and meet people. And so I said this earlier. A great way is to look for internships. You do an internship at a company, you're going to meet a lot of people, and even if you don't take a job there, you're going to meet other people that work there. They can lead you to other potential employers, and you'll kind of get an idea of what it's like to work in that certain area, that certain industry. So the best thing I can say is you need to get out there and talk to people.
I would say that LinkedIn is a really good resource, because even if you're reaching out someone who is really senior in a senior role, always know that they have been there before. So they were like you and I. So they didn't just get all these expertise in one night or anything like that. So people with senior, or even if like they have like a very, very junior role, we've all been there. So never like feel like, oh, I don't know, I don't have a lot of experience in this field. Should I just reach out? Should I not? Just do it. You're not going to lose anything. The only time that you use something is when you don't reach out, and try not to make any connections. And there are also a lot of young professional programs with like the Chamber of Commerce in your local community. So they also have a lot of networking events going on in real life. So, or maybe like remote as well. So yeah, just try to talk to people, and people have, just put yourselves into their shoes. Like, would you help that person out? If you have something going on, you would definitely help out. If you don't have anything going on, you would do your best to point them into the right direction, who might have a lead on something.
Yeah, building off that a little bit more too. I know Brian said going out for internships, and events are a big thing as well. I know someone in the chat said game jams and hackathons, things like that. You go out to these events, you meet these people, and yeah, you'll spend a weekend or whatever at some of these events. Then you'll go home. Make sure to shoot them a message when you get home. A lot of people will let those connections die instantly. They'll be like, oh, they'll message me if they're interested. Well, you're interested. You're the one looking for a job. You're the one looking for connections. Shoot a message out. nope. They don't want to talk to you, they'll just ignore the message. You know, it's not going to hurt anybody. So.
Awesome. Thank you all for that insight. Appreciate it. I think we might have time for maybe one, possibly two. We'll try to squeeze them in. But just the theme around from some of the questions in the chat have been primarily from maybe students who not necessarily have a coding degree or a coding background, but are still super interested in the field, really wanting to try and kind of break in. So what might be some advice or tips or maybe even some examples of entry-level jobs that could be available to some of those students who might be recently graduating, who again may or may not be exactly in the field of coding or have that specific degree, but really want to break into that industry?
I'll start, and then again, this is going to be a little bit dated because I've been out of circulation for a little bit, but a lot of the entry level jobs, this is 20 years ago, involved testing. So there's a lot of software testing jobs out there, especially for bigger companies. And so you're not actually doing the coding yourself, but you're trying to break the code, and that has a lot of value to these software companies. And as you get more and more experience, then they can train you and eventually to take you into other technical roles. But that's a pretty standard entry level position for someone who's interested in the industry.
Yeah, and we used to have this concept or mindset called Workforce 2020. This was like 2010 through 15, but we were promoting to employees reskilling and retooling themselves and encouraging people to go out and go to things like Udemy and nano degrees and certifications and things like that. And I've seen some really successful people who were not techies kind of put themselves through that and then volunteer for some projects at work. And they had their normal everyday job, but they worked on these volunteer projects with the skills that they learned and picked up, and they did really well. And our technology department kind of pulled them from their various other departments and pulled them into the HR, into the technology realm, and they kind of grew and became something, way more than they thought they could be. So I would say self-skilling up and volunteer for some programs or some projects to kind of show off your development, and who knows where that can lead you.
I will say too, team leads for especially experienced teams, they kind of water at the mouth at the thought of a employee that has never touched technology before, because it can kind of mold them into their tool system. You don't have any of these experiences or habits built up from other tools or anything you've done before. So they will jump on those opportunities, especially if it's an internal transfer or something, because it's less paperwork for them and it's quicker to get you in. They just give you a laptop and can get you started. So if there's openings at a job you're at, like just shoot for it. Any associate level roles, even, like, it doesn't have to be testing. It could be just software engineer, developer, anything you want to go for. Just apply, and if they say no, reach out to the hiring manager if you know them and say, hey, what's good, what's bad, get some feedback on it instead of just letting it sit dead, because that feedback will help you the next round then.
Yeah, I also seen, I'm going to add to a little bit to what Brian mentioned. Yeah, software tester is a great way to get into the industry. And I have seen a lot of people, even in my team, in my past experiences, during the interview process, we always asked that what they want to do in the future, like in the near future, if they have any plan to become a software developer or anything like that. We would just take them in as testers and try to get the exposure to the code, to the environment, to a professional environment, a development environment, and then watch their progress from there. And if they still have any desire to pursue software development, when it's the right time, they will be asked to be mentored by another software developer to see if they're like actually a good fit and all that stuff. So these are very possible scenarios, and I have seen myself happening a couple of times in the near past, basically.
So I'm from the South, and we have a saying that closed mouths don't get fed. And I think that I've really heard that reflected here today. And I think that, thank you, Cenker, that's an excellent note to end on. We are right at time, and I don't want to take anyone past the time. So again, a thank you to our panelists. I am going to go ahead and briefly share this last slide for everyone, just so you have some wrap-up information. You can go ahead and scan the QR code to complete a survey, and there's also, again, information how you registered on upcoming sessions. So I'll leave this up for a couple minutes, and again, thank you so much to our panelists. We appreciate the time today, and to Cheryl for facilitating, and I hope everyone else enjoys the rest of the week of codes and games. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.